Ballet dancer and teacher Jane Byrne owns Studio Dancewear. Jane is based in Carlow in Ireland and joins Miriam O'Gara, Celtress, on Business Block. Business Block is powered by the Women's Inspire Network. Welcome to the show, everyone. This is Business Block with Miriam O'Gara, and my guest today is a dancer. Her name is Jane Byrne, and she runs Studio Dancewear. Jane, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much, Miriam. It's lovely to be here.
All the way from Carlow?
All the way from Carlow. Not originally, but I'm here in Carlow.
So where are you originally from?
Originally from Carlow.
Oh,
but we're
nice.
living here. We're actually both from Carlow, and it's just amazing how it all happened. But we ended up coming to Carlow just over 20 years ago, and we've built our forever home here now, so we won't be moving anywhere back. But to have to say, I miss the beach.
Oh, I bet. Well,
Yeah.
We're both stage performers. Myself, a professional singer all my life. Yourself, a dancer. Tell us your background.
Oh, crikey. Okay, well, I started dancing when I was about 2.5 years of age, and that the story goes was that I sat down and I watched a full-length ballet on TV when I was about 2, and my mum says that I was just transfixed by what was going on. So in September, I was 2 in April, so in September they started me in ballet classes, and I adored it. It was just my thing.
Yes.
And I was dancing everywhere. So I continued ballet classes up until I was about 7. And then the teacher, you would only come into our town 1 day a week. Not like now where you could have a dance class 7 days a week if you wanted it. But back then, 45 years ago, I had only one opportunity, one ballet class a week. And then when I was 7, she decided that she gave the opportunity to the class, who wants to do ballet, who wants to do modern, because modern dancing was just kind of starting out. And the whole class said modern, and I said ballet. So I didn't have an opportunity. I didn't have a choice. I continued dancing, but I wasn't doing ballet. And I loved ballet. But I still love doing modern dancing. I still really adored it. And when I was 18, I had no clue what I wanted to do when I left school. I was always so jealous of girls who knew what they wanted to do from the time they were in junior infants. And it used to really bug me. But I had no clue. I knew I didn't want to sit in an office. That was not my thing.
Yes.
So I did go to college after school, and I did leisure management. And I loved it. I really did enjoy it. But it wasn't me. It still wasn't me. So when I was 22, the ripe old age of 22, I went to the UK and I went to dance college. And I was literally flung in the deep end because I hadn't done ballet in 14 years, and every college course that you go to in dancing, you will have ballet as a must. So 3 hours every day, 5 days a week of ballet classes. And I had
where did you enroll?
I was in Liverpool in a place called Merseyside Dance and Drama Centre. And I can remember standing there because I was the old granny. I went straight into 3rd year. So there was all kind of 16, 17-year-olds, and I was 22. So I was seen as the old one. And I was seen as the mammy. And I can remember standing there looking at girls, because I grew up with Fame on TV.
Yes.
And I remember looking and going, I'm in dance college. How the hell did this ever happen? Yes. But I went and I studied my backside off for a year, and I qualified. No clue that I would qualify as a ballet teacher because I hadn't been doing ballet. But I modern dancing, I said, I'll do my modern exams. And I was doing the ballet classes. And there's a particular amount of classes that you have to do, or particular grades that you have to do before you can take your teachers. And I did mine and I failed it, which wasn't a surprise. But I went to my, I suppose because I was a bit older, I had the gumption that I was able to go and talk to my teachers, and I wasn't afraid of my principal. She was a bit scary, but I wasn't afraid of her. And I went to her and I said, look, can I continue doing the ballet classes and continue taking the teachers' classes, even though I'm not going to do it? And she looked at me and said, oh my goodness, darling, you'll be doing it. So I was taken aback by that, because there was only about 8 or 12 weeks left before we finished up. So I went and I repeated the exam. But the thing was, I repeated the exam on a Sunday, and based on my results on that Sunday was whether or not I could do my teacher's exam on the Monday. So yeah, it was so and I had to go in on my own because everybody else had passed their exam. So I then, when I finished my exam, I had to go downstairs into the basement with one of my teachers and sit there because I couldn't see the examiner as she walked out of the building. I wasn't allowed to do that. Oh. So as she walked out, she would give a nod or a shake of the head to my principal as to whether or not I could do my exam the next day. And all I heard was the shout down the stairs, "You can do your exam tomorrow, darling." Ah. So that was, I did my teacher's exam and I qualified and I passed, and I was just so excited. The fact that I had managed to do my year, it was 10 months, but I had done my modern associate, my modern teacher's exam and my ballet exam in the 10 months. And I came back home and I started teaching, and teaching was my absolute love. Absolutely adore teaching. But there was something there in the background. When I was 16, I walked into my first dance shop, and I can remember standing in the doorway and saying, "That's what I want." And 6.5, nearly 7 years ago, that's what I did. I was teaching for 15 years, stopped teaching them when our first baby was born, and we had 2 more after her. And then when they were 7, 5, and 2, I started my dance shop. So, and here we are today.
So tell us a little bit about that. Was it actually having the children and seeing them, their movement and what they wanted, or did that kind of, was that the impetus to get going again with the shop? Or
it actually wasn't. I'll be honest, and I've no fear in admitting it. I wanted to be me again. I wanted Jane, and I adore being a mum. Yes. I love being a wife, but I wanted me again. I wanted Jane. I felt like I still don't like, for me personally, I never liked relying on my husband being in work. And even though he keeps saying to me, you know, you don't have to ask for anything. It's there, it's ours. We work. You're at home, you're with the children. I physically go to work outside of the house. But as far as he was concerned, we were both working. But I never liked that thing of, I didn't feel like I was financially contributing. Yes. Even though I was at home and we didn't have the children in you know, childcare or anything like that, I was their full-time mum. I just wanted me back. I wanted to be able to say, I'm Jane and I'm contributing that way to the house. Yes. So, and that's where that came from. And as well as that, what is the brilliant thing that I find that has come of this, because they were so young when I started, and it was really hard when I started, because the mum guilt, I never realized what the mum guilt would be like, but I struggled hugely with that. And I kept saying to myself, no, keep going, because it'll be worth it. And my little boy, when he was 2 when I started, when he was 3.5, he made everything, yes, this is the right thing to do, because I was in work. I had a tiny office at the time, and there was a leotard on my desk, and he picked the leotard up without saying anything. He picked the leotard up, put it on the shelf, and he said, now it's back in stock. And that to me was like, okay, they're learning something. You know, they're seeing it going from my kitchen table. They're seeing it going from a dream, yes, from the back of the boot of my car to a small 12 square meter office. And then they saw it going into a retail unit 2 years ago. So they have learned huge amount. And I learned so much with my parents because they had a business. Yes. So from the time we could answer the phone, because at the time, we didn't have mobile phones. So the phone was linked to the house, to the factory. Yes. From the time we could answer a phone, we were answering the phone to customers. So we learned all of that, how to talk to people, how to understand and listen to people, and to be able to treat people with respect. And they're doing the very same thing. And it is, you know, I regardless of whether the business makes it big or not, they've learned a huge amount for going forward for their lives. And that's what I really like.
Have any of the children followed you into dance?
My daughter is 13.5, and I have to be honest with you, she is better than I ever was at her age. Oh. She is better than I would have ever imagined myself to be at her age. She's a lovely dancer. It's very natural for her. Our youngest boy, he's 8. If he danced, he would be really, really good, but he just won't do it. But no, he won't. He said to me one day that he wanted to do dancing, And I brought him, and he managed to stay for one class. And then he came out and he said no, because there was only girls there.
Now, that's an interesting point, isn't it? A very interesting. Are we still in a place in the dance world, not just in ballet, but are we in a place still where it is still difficult to recruit boys?
Oh, when I was teaching for 15 years, I had, I think, 2 boys that came to me in those 15 years. And then even, it's going 6.5 years ago, about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I had a discussion with a lady, because her brother had come in at Christmas time, and his son was doing gymnastics and dancing, and he had bought several items for his little boy who was doing dancing and gymnastics. And then she came into me after Christmas, and she looked around, and she just said to me, now she knew my background as a dance teacher, because I had known her through, I think it was Pilates or Zumba, I can't remember. But she said to me, do you know what? If I ever had a son, there is no way in this earth I would allow him to do dancing. And in that split second, I can remember thinking, I've had this conversation so many times and just let it brush over my head and said nothing. But I just thought, no, I can't let this go. And she caught me on a bad day probably as well, but I just couldn't let it go. And I looked at her and I said, why? And I think that took her back. She wasn't expecting me to say anything, but she said it was too, and in her words, airy-fairy. She wouldn't mind if they did Irish dancing because it was a bit stumpy. But it just, I had to take a breath, and I said, do you understand what it means to do dancing? Do you understand? You see all these people on Strictly Come Dancing. You see them on Dancing with the Stars. You see them gymnasts. You see ice skaters. You see river dance. I said, do you see? I said, anybody who has gone to a dance college will have done ballet, and they will all be professionally trained in ballet.
Yes,
and they will all be. It's known that rugby teams in South America do ballet classes.
Absolutely.
I put an article on my Facebook page last year because there's premiership teams in the UK doing ballet.
Yes.
Because it's known how good it is for your body and how strong it makes you.
Yes.
But it ended up anyway that we just had to agree to disagree, because there was no way I was going to change her mind. But I things like that, when something like that happens in work, I come home and I have the discussion with our 3 here. We've a girl and 2 boys, and we have that discussion about, why do you think that this lady might have thought that, and do you think it's right? And because the one thing I don't want them to grow up with is the idea that something is for one gender and it's not for another. I want them to realize that everything, you try everything, try anything, and see how you get on. And we've brought them. We were so lucky before the pandemic. We had been to the West End the year before that, and we'd gone to 3 or 4 shows, and they adored it, and they're still singing the songs from it. Yes. From all the shows that we saw. So they see that dancing doesn't have to be one particular style, but ballet is a foundation, and
absolutely,
there's so many branches off of it.
Absolutely. And I've seen it myself. I mean, I was a stage performer. I was basically a singer all my life, but I know dancers who were really busy professional dancers in Ireland. I've one friend, her name is Phil Taylor, and she was in the Gaiety Theatre for years. Again, it was modern dance mainly with Phil. Yeah. But the resilience, I mean, she was just incredibly resilient. Yeah. She'd gone through all the different types of dance. Now, I think of people, who was I interviewing recently? I was interviewing the actor Richard Chamberlain recently.
Oh, right.
He trained in ballet as a young man, building muscle, but building resilience. Yeah. He didn't want heavy muscle. Yeah. And was a fantastic dancer, ballet dancer,
we went actually to see, I don't know if you've ever heard of Matthew Byrne, New Adventures.
Yes.
Oh, we went to see that show in the Bord Gáis there. I suppose it must be 2 years ago now with the pandemic and everything, but it was Swan Lake, and it's an all-male cast. I think there may be three females in it, but they dance bare-chested,
Yes.
And the one thing that I said to my husband was, what I loved about the show was the dancing is phenomenal, but what you see how much effort goes into doing their dancing, because you can see the physical, you can see the definition of every muscle.
Yes.
You can see the sweat. And
yes.
That's what I loved about watching that show, was that you get a complete appreciation for how hard it is and how much effort and work goes into it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It's phenomenal.
Do you feel that, even just going back to the 80s, you were talking about fame there. I know exactly what you're talking about, and the leg warmers and all the different things that we went for. Do you feel that dance does come in fads?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And at the moment, it seems to have been Irish dancing in the last decade. That was very much
and then you'll get, the likes of Zumba, that all of these things, they'll come in waves. And then Dancing with the Stars, because that happened. Everybody wanted to do Latin dancing.
Yes.
But going back to basics, ballet is always there. There's ballet will never not be there. And ballet schools are always going to do well. Unfortunately, and I've come across it, there is an attitude of, if you do ballet, you're a different type of person.
Yes.
To somebody who does another style of dancing.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible shame. It's a terrible
shame.
It is. So disciplined. What it gives you in discipline is just, it adds such value to your life in so many ways. Later on, you'll be so thankful.
This is the thing. Yeah. And I even heard a lady at the weekend that I actually knew in college, and she said something that really hurt me. Now, I haven't had any contact with her since we left college 25 years ago, but she said that she had always wanted to be a dancer. And when she came home from college, that she realized that there wasn't enough money in dancing, so she was going to get herself a real job. And that really, really got to me, because she was saying this in front of thousands of people would have heard her saying that. And to turn around, and as my daughter said, she just disrespected all of her dance teachers that she ever came across. She disrespected every dance teacher in the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what she learned, I don't think she understands what she learned from being in a dance class. Yeah. People talk about social distancing now. You automatically socially distance yourself when you're in a dance class, because if you don't, you're going to get a slap across the face.
Yes.
Or you're going to get a kick.
Yes.
Or you're going to get something. So you are very spatial awareness when you're doing dancing.
Yes.
It's heightened spatial awareness when you're dancing. So there's a huge amount that you learn from. You learn to work in groups. You learn to work as a team. You learn to, you're listening to music. You learn about rhythm. You learn all these, and you become very body conscious as well.
Yes.
You know your body.
And that's
what an awful lot of physiotherapists, I've had my fair share of physiotherapists, but they have all said to me, and they've all remarked, you really know your body.
Yes.
Because you have to listen to your body when you're a dancer. You don't have a choice.
You become very mentally attuned, your mental acuity and also your spiritual acuity. You don't realize that you're actually bringing together physical, spiritual and mental. You become, you have to be so aware of what's going on, not just behind the fourth wall of the audience, but also what's going on in the wings, what's going on with your partner. If there's something that's gone awry in the orchestra, if there's so many aspects of yourself that you draw into control and balance. It's a wonderful experience, and really dance, and if you're in plays as well, you'll experience the same thing. It does this to a much greater extent than playing in a team, actually, or playing in a basketball or something like that. It's a particularly raw and very developmental experience that it just leaves its mark on you always. It's a difficult thing to explain to people unless they've actually been there.
It is. And even, you know yourself as a performer that if something goes wrong, you pardon the pun, but you have to think on your feet.
Yes.
You have to be able to change change. Like if you're dancing with somebody, or if you're on stage with somebody and they end up slightly ahead of where they should be, or slightly back from where they should be, you have to be able to adjust very, very quickly to that.
And then bring each other back into tempo again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had my fair share of falls on the stage. I've fallen so many times on the stage, and you just get up and you have to be able to think quickly, and you have to be able to pick up the dance straight away. So you can't let what happened. So even working under pressure, it's all these things that come from dance that I don't think it may not be explained enough.
Yeah.
What a dance class does for a child, or for a student, or for an adult, and I see an awful lot of adults now going back to dancing as well, they may have left dancing for years.
And what is your opinion of the best age to start? I mean, we can say as a child, but what about adults re-entering dance?
Listen,
or for the first time?
I would say that if you want to dance, just dance. Don't forget age. Yeah. Because age for me does not come into it. As long as you have a teacher who knows what they're doing, and as long as you have a teacher who understands, maybe mobility might have changed, or there may be injuries involved, or there might be, arthritis or something like that. As long as you have a teacher who understands those,
yes, then
I would say to you, go for it. Don't ever think that you can't start dancing. Don't ever think.
And I suppose that 35, 40 years ago, that actually could have been the problem, that you had a lot of people who didn't have that education.
Yeah.
And perhaps the venue was also a problem.
I have a great example, actually, of somebody who I know. I'm doing a course at the moment with somebody who's based in New Zealand, and her business partner is now 69, I think she is. But Jackie is the lady who was 69. Esther is the lady I'm doing the course with. And Esther was a ballet teacher, and she's been in ballet for the last 35 years. She was a professional dancer, and she's been fitting point shoes for the last 35 years. But Jackie had been dancing right up into her late teens, early 20s. Then she had stopped dancing for nearly 40 years. And she went back to Esther, and she started going back through. She started at the very base level of ballet. She did all of her grades the whole way up, and she is now standing at the age of 66. She went back onto point shoes.
Oh.
So there is no reason in the world why, if you are brought through it carefully and you're brought through it correctly, no reason why you can't go back to dancing, or even just start dancing.
Yes.
It's absolutely possible. And you get to know your body. I mean, the Royal Academy of Dance is an association based in the UK, and they actually have a syllabus called Silver Swans. So it's for the older person, and they have a syllabus specifically for that.
What do you feel has changed in the teaching of ballet?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that have changed in dance in general. Some are great and some are not so great. For the world of ballet, I think there's an awful lot more awareness of the potential side effects or injuries that can be caused if it's not done correctly. And I think teachers are more aware of that. There's a lot of associations. There's a lot of research that you can read. Now, unfortunately, there still needs to be more education out there. There still needs, and that's something that, as a point shoe fitter, that's something that I'm kind of in team with Esther in New Zealand. That's something that we're trying to get more education out there to dance teachers, to show the potential injury if a student goes on point too soon, or if they're not ready. There is also the side of competitive dance. It wouldn't be my favorite side of dance, but that's just me. I didn't grow up with competition dancing. And it just needs to be carefully approached, because what can happen, and what I have seen happen in the past, not too often, fortunately, but it becomes that it's more important that a student will win a competition rather than the technique being correct.
We've seen this in Irish dancing.
It's all over the place. Yeah, it's everywhere. And we're trying to bridge that gap. It's an ongoing battle because people who are really focused on competition, they're not necessarily really focused on technique, because technique takes time. You know yourself as a performer, you're not going to be able to perform to the absolute highest overnight. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a lot of work. You know, I'm mentoring students at the moment to go in on point shoes, and it's an 18-week mentoring.
Yes.
So it takes a long time to do it, and it takes a huge amount of work on the students' behalf, because they're at home, they're doing it every single day. I see them once a week for an hour.
Yes.
But it's all of this kind of thing that there is change. It's just a long battle that we have to keep plowing at. We have to keep at the teachers to educate them, just to see that, you know, it's not and one thing that really kind of concerns me is overstretching. So right. You'll see it all over Instagram, and you'll see it all over TikTok, and all over all these social media pages, where you'll have people overstretching and showing how they can stand on one leg, and their leg does it. When I was growing up, it was 180 degrees. You know, that's the limit. That's where you go. But now you see them and they're pushing beyond 180 degrees, and their bodies just aren't meant to do that. And the concern is
people to do that on something like TikTok. That's dangerous.
And that's the thing that I actually I did a TikTok recently, and thankfully I've had over 17,500 views on it, because I feel like, okay, I've reached 17,500 people. And what it was me standing with one foot in a point shoe, one foot barefooted. I went up on point and I said, because what you often see is a video, this is what happens inside a point shoe. And a girl will go on her foot in a point shoe like that, and the other foot is scrunched. Now, you can't scrunch your feet. If you scrunch your feet in a point shoe, then first of all, your point shoe doesn't fit you correctly. Secondly, you're not working it correctly, so you're going to end up possibly hurting your ankles. So I showed, this is what I'm seeing people saying happens, but this is what should happen. Yes. So, and it's great that I'm getting those views, and it's great that, you know, 17,500 people have seen that on TikTok. And yes. If it hits home with 100 people, then it's 100 people who are less likely to get injured.
Yes, absolutely. So, very, very good point. I just want to go to your website again for a second. Beautiful website. Absolutely love it. And I hope it's come up there for you.
It has.
So again, beautiful logo, the studio dancewear, and I love the front page. It's absolutely gorgeous. And what you have there, how long has this website been going, Jane?
It is now, it was February, so I'm in business. So it's 6 years, just over 6 years.
So it's very, very easy to follow. But I love this. You've got Shop by Brand, and you've got all the top brands there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then you've your About Us as well, school orders. Do you work with schools directly?
What I do is, so all of these schools will come to me and they'll say to me, okay, these are what our uniforms are. So I will have all of their uniforms in stock, and then on the website, people can just click in. So say, for instance, the Ballet Byrne in Carlow, people can click in onto that website, onto that page, and all the Ballet Byrne uniform is listed, and they will have a sheet from the teacher to say what their student needs for their grade. And then they can just click onto that and they'll be able to pick it out. So I would know, I think I know every single dance teacher there. And that's where my background was really helpful when I set up the business, was that because I was a student, I have worn all the dancewear growing up. Yes. Then I was a teacher, so I know what I need from a teacher's point of view in a class. I'm also a mum to a dancer, so I know, you know, you don't want to get something that's going to fit today and not tomorrow. And dancewear is difficult to size because every single brand will be different sizings to the next brand. So I had a really good background to work with when I set up the business.
And do you find with your website that it does end up being a site that gravitates more towards the ballerina
Yes.
I know you've got a little boy there. You've got boys ballet shorts.
The majority of my customers would be ballet orientated. Yes. But I think the other side of it is I'm probably more ballet orientated myself.
Yes.
So that's where that comes from. And my absolute passion is point shoe fitting. So that's ballet. So yes, the majority of people, now I am getting people who would be Irish dancing. I don't know a whole lot about Irish dancing. I had to get somebody to show me how to fit Irish dancing shoes and to lace them up because I had no idea how to do that. And then I have some gymnastics wear as well, and it's a really good brand. It's one of a sister company of another supplier that I have. So, but I don't. My background would be ballet and modern, but I have stuff there for ballroom, Latin, tap, jazz, hip hop, you name it. It's all there.
Absolutely, it is. I suppose it's a particular dance style that maybe some people could get nervous of because they're maybe a little afraid of the discipline, or perhaps they be worried that the teacher will be an ogre.
Yeah, I mean, you have all these preconceived ideas, I suppose, of ballet teachers. You know, they're there and they're really tough and they're hard and yes, they probably are. But, you know, the majority of dance teachers, I have said it for all of my dance teaching career, we're all a bit mad. You know, and if we get, especially when a dance teacher gets tired, you know, the silliness starts to come out.
Yes.
And you go a bit crazy and you have a bit of fun. I've never met in my teaching career, I'm trying to think, I don't think I've ever met a dance teacher who would scare me or scare me to send my child to. And I will always, people will always ask me, and I get it all the time, you know, can you tell me about a particular dance school? One thing I have never done, I will never recommend a dance school unless I personally have seen the teacher teach and I have seen how they talk to children. Because I don't know what they're like. I know what I'm like as a teacher. So any school that I recommend, it's from personal experience.
Absolutely.
I can tell people, yes, there is X, Y, and Z in that area, but I don't know what they are like personally. So, and I will always, what I like to do, if a teacher does approach me for their uniform, I will always have a phone call with them and talk to them and tell them my experience. And that's one thing that is really good for me as well. There's one little nugget that I have, a little bit of advice that I would say to any parent who has a little tiny tot in particular who is starting ballet: get a leotard that has a skirt attached to it.
Yes. Because
that's one less thing that they have to think about if they're going to the bathroom, because you will inevitably end up with a skirt down on the floor. Or unfortunately, I've come across parents who have had to come back to me because the skirt ends up going into the toilet. So, and then dance teachers will end up the skirt up around the armpits, over the shoulders, down around the knees, you know, you name it. So so that's just one nugget of information that I have, is get it with the skirted leotard.
How do you feel things have changed with regard to sizeism? For example, you know, a young girl or a young lad who's going through puberty and perhaps their body's changing, and they become very conscious when they're doing certain activities of that.
Yeah.
How, and of course, traditionally, you would have had the image of the very lean, slim, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, you know, and then you hit this phase in your life where hormones kick in and changes take place.
Yeah.
How has the dance world, in your opinion, catered to that? Have things improved?
I'd like to say that I think they have. But I don't... Any teachers that I know, and then again, these are teachers that I would have personally come across, they're completely aware of the issues that are surrounding puberty and surrounding, you know, not even puberty, surrounding tiny tots, 10, 11-year-olds, because puberty can start, you know, anywhere from the age of 9 upwards. You'd have young girls going into puberty, and they are all very understanding about it. Probably size-wisings, it's funny because I have suppliers Most of my suppliers are UK based, but I also have a supplier in Portugal and I have some suppliers in France. And the supplier in Portugal, I have had to go back 3 or 4 times because they make a specific leotard for me. And I have had to go back 3 or 4 times and say, listen, you're going to have to increase the sizes of your leotards, because we don't have, like, they sent me an age 4 leotard and I looked at it and I said, that is for a 6-month-old. That is not for a 4-year-old. So the problem is that I would have 3 and 4-year-olds wearing age 10, supposedly age 10 leotards from this particular company. They're fabulous leotards. And I don't call them age 10. I say size 10, because they just are not age 10 UK. Yeah. So and even still, they changed their sizings over lockdown, and I got an order in a week ago, and I took them out, and there is the tiniest change in the sizes, and I've had to go back and say, no, I'm sorry, but that's not a UK sizing. And I have sent them measurements, like full measurements and photos, but they still don't get it. So yes, you have
poor
to.
Business. It's very poor business on their part.
It is. It really is, and especially, you just need to be aware, and parents need to be aware as well, that just like going to, a high street shop here and going to a local small boutique, the sizings are going to be completely different. So don't take what is said on the label as being what that age is. And if it doesn't fit your child, it's not that your child is wrong. It's just the sizings, and just ask for advice, because I've been there. I've had children coming into me aging, age 8 wearing an age 12. And it's just the brand, and you just have to go with it and understand that they're not all the same. They'll be completely different.
Do you find that problem also exists with the point shoes?
Point shoes is a very different kettle of fish, because it's a very, very personal experience to have point shoes fitted. It could take over an hour to have a pair of point shoes fitted, and there's a whole host of reasons for that. The main reasons would be they come in different widths and lengths and strength. So it will all depend on the student. You have to look at, it's a full body experience really when you're fitting point shoes.
Yes.
The course that I'm doing, you are looked from the head down to your little toe. So it's a full experience, a full assessment when you come in. And it can also go back to, I had one girl recently, and it wasn't disclosed to me, but halfway through the fitting, it was really bugging me, because one shoe was fitting perfectly and the other shoe was twisting slightly. And I was looking at everything and I couldn't figure it out. And she was there, she had a jumper on her because it was the winter, it was before Christmas. And I just said, I'm sorry. And I one thing that I will not do, and I haven't done it yet and I will never do it, is sell a pair of point shoes for the sake of it. If I'm not 100% happy, I will not sell you a pair of point shoes. There are other places that, yes, you could go in and walk out with a pair of point shoes, no problem, no questions asked. But that's not me. But it came out in the middle of this fitting. The mum was there, and she's a dance teacher, funnily, and she just said, "Oh, do you think your brace is causing it?" And I looked and I said, "What do you mean, what brace?" She had scoliosis, and she didn't tell me. So I just looked at her and I said, "I'm really, really sorry." Now, this all happened prior to me doing my course. So my eyes have been opened completely now as to what I need to ask. And I have a whole list of questions for any student and parent who comes to me now. But I didn't have this information. And I said, "I'm really, really sorry, but I cannot fit a pair of point shoes on a child." She has since had surgery. But I cannot fit a pair of point shoes.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah. I can completely understand that. If you've got one leg shorter than the other, it could be a pelvic issue.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. A spine issue. So I can completely understand what you're saying when you say it has to be a head to toe.
Yeah.
Complete fitting. You have to look at all aspects of the person's physiology.
Yeah.
it totally makes sense. Totally.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like I've had students who have come into me, and one girl in particular, I fitted her with point shoes. This was back when I first started fitting point shoes, so going back a few years, and I didn't have the experience that I have now. I would be a lot more confident in what I'm doing. But even when she was sitting down, she couldn't put her feet correctly on point. And she just didn't have the strength. And she actually had come out of her ballet class on a Friday evening with a letter to say that she needed point shoes by the following week. They didn't even know that they were doing pre-point classes. So the teacher hadn't prepared them correctly. So again, it comes back to education. The teacher, and you see the big problem that we're facing is that when you do your teacher's exams and when you're doing that studying, there's actually no module to teach you how to teach point. So no, there's nothing. So the teacher, the onus is on then the newly qualified teacher to go away and learn, or else what they're doing is, and what is happening all of the time, they're doing what their teacher taught them. Yes. So 20 years ago, what the information we had 20 years ago is very, very different to the information we have now. So it just we need to get more education out to teachers, and that's our big thing now. Have
you thought of, CPD in this area and offering those courses yourself?
Yes. What we can do when I'm fully qualified, and I will hopefully be qualified in the next 6 weeks, we can do, we can do workshops with teachers, and we actually did last year. We did workshops I facilitated it through Studio Dance, where Esther presented the workshop from New Zealand, and we presented it to 14 teachers. So we had teachers from Ireland, from the UK and Germany. And so she gives the workshop and she talks about the importance of, and it's very, very basic information, stuff that you would imagine that everybody would know as a dance teacher. But the enlightenment, you see people going, oh, I didn't know that. And this is, so we can facilitate workshops. We can facilitate every course that I do, every mentoring session. There's 3 mentoring sessions. I do a workshop. I did one this morning with each of my students to tell them what's coming up. And the parent has to be there with them so that the parent can see what work is going to be happening. We can do workshops with a group of people. We can present the dangers of what happens on point, or the dangers of not being prepared correctly, or lack of strength for a student. So it's all those things that we're trying to get more and more workshops. I'm the first person outside of New Zealand to do the course, and I'm guaranteed to be the only person in Ireland to hold the course. Yes. And it was literally just a by chance moment that I met her. And it's just funny how it all works. But if I wouldn't have met her only for COVID.
I was just going to say, so that is a eureka moment within the last 16 months that has come directly into
it was last June, and Esther's, I can't remember exactly how we met. I know it was on Facebook. She said that she saw me describing myself as a professional point shoe fitter, and she thought, I've never seen that in 35 years, and I want to see more of what you think you are. So she contacted me, and I think it was a comment I made on Facebook or something. I can't remember, but within 2 days we were on Zoom, and I think it was about a 3-hour Zoom call, just talking point shoes. And then we got talking more and more and more. And last November, then I started. Usually it's an 8-day point shoe fitting course that she does in New Zealand. The courses I had done were 6 hours long. Hers was 8 days. And she then had to do this course and develop it for being online. And only for my restart grant, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. So that's the other side of it. So it's amazing what has happened over the last 16 months.
Isn't that just wonderful? What a collaboration.
Oh, it's just, I still can't believe it. I still look at her and I still think, how am I doing this? How has this happened? Because this Irish thing of, I suppose it's imposter syndrome. That you don't think you're good enough. You think, oh, no, don't ask me that question. I don't know. But I still think, how has this happened? How did this come across? Like little old me in Carlow. And I'm doing something that nobody else outside of New Zealand has ever done. And I'm the only person in Ireland that's going to hold this qualification.
But you see, really creative people are the ones who flourish and who seem to draw each other to one another, even online, even through social media. That's what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I think
so. I think it renews your faith in creativity as well.
Yeah. But Esther had even said that she had asked, Esther is so lovely. She's 67. And as she says, you know, she's coming up to retirement. She's done enough work, but she still wants to do this. She wants to get the education and the information out there. But she said, I had asked the universe to send me people. And she said, and then the next within a few weeks, you were there.
Yes.
It's like, it's just,
yeah.
I'm still in this kind of bubble that I just can't believe my luck.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful
I completely get that. Yeah. And it is very much, that experience, I think, is very much within the world of the performer. They're open to that.
I think so. Yeah, I definitely think so, because even people have said to me about my Instagram posts over lockdown that I was never down. I was always happy in my posts. And it's like, well, what's the point in being down? What's the point in putting more misery out there?
Yeah.
You know, just I wasn't putting it on. That's just me. If I had a bad day, I didn't post anything. So, you know.
Well, you know something? I think the next 6 weeks are going to be very important for you. Yeah. What about, let's say, from here to Christmas? Where do you see the business going? What do you hope is going to happen now?
Okay, right. Well, at the moment it's very slow because dance schools still aren't really open, and the majority of dance schools are kind of waiting until September when they can start afresh and start a new term.
Yes.
I cannot wait to have girls in to fit point shoes. I can't wait to put the information that I have into practice.
Yes.
I really wanted to it took me 6.5 years to build up to where I was. And then obviously COVID hit and it was like, okay, falling off the side of a cliff. I know myself that when dance schools reopen that I'll be very busy. I just know I will, because I've had so much support from people saying, you know, that the way I project myself is I'm just me. I don't put on an act.
No.
And
but
it's
you come across as being so well prepared, an expert, well educated, continuing your CPD, very conscious of how your client feels, not doing them down. That's all there in how when you are being yourself. That's what they get. That's what they understand.
Yeah, it's what you get when you see me. This is what I am.
Yes,
I like to have a bit of fun, and I one thing I cannot wait to see is when I open my doors, having the tiny tots coming in, because they are just the best. And I'm very conscious of when they come in with their mom or their dad and they're hiding behind legs and just you see them peeping out from behind. I get down on the floor on my hands and my knees and I get on eye level with them and I talk to them. I know the mom or the dad is going to pay for what their shoes or whatever it is that they're coming in. But ultimately, if they're not happy with the shoes that they're wearing, they're not going to come back to me.
Yes.
And if they're afraid of me, and what I think is really hard at the moment as well is for little tiny tots with the masks on, that they see me with a mask. So they can't see my face smiling. They can't see so I'm over smiling. So my eyes are smiling with them.
Yes.
And I have a bit of fun with them. And I'll talk to them about anything that they want to. I will often forget ballet shoes for the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And we'll talk about dogs. We'll talk about what they did in school. We'll talk about the painting that they did. We'll talk about what Santa's going to bring them. You know, all of those things.
Yeah.
And that's just the one thing that I can't wait. It's the excitement. And I had 3 people in one day last week. And I was so giddy for the day because I had 3 people in. Because it was just, I hadn't had that many people in over a year, and it was so exciting. But I definitely, I'm a big child at heart, and just seeing people getting back to what they love, that's the exciting part. And yes, studio dancewear will come back, studio dancer will bounce back, and it will hopefully develop into somewhere where people will come because they know that I know what I'm talking about.
If you could offer 3 pieces of advice to a dance teacher in your situation who's
Yep.
perhaps had to shut down or perhaps
Yep.
is just restarting again, what would you say to them?
First of all, I'd say take a breath, because there is so much that you can do in a panic. And then, because I have done that, you know, last Christmas, I had such a panic attack. I can remember it so vividly, lying on my bed crying. And my husband just came and sat beside me. And I said, everything is just gone. It's just washed away. And we were looking at months of lockdown, not knowing what was going to happen. And we considered closing the shop and taking everything back home and converting the garage into somewhere. And then within a couple of days, I just went, no, do you know what? It's going to be okay. Yeah. So you need to just take a breath, have your tears, have all of that, yes, but don't make a decision in the middle of all of that.
Yes.
You
no
can
jerk reactions.
Yeah. And it's really, really hard at the time to see that. And I've had several moments, and I will always say as well, everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
You may not see what that reason is for months or years to come, but eventually you'll look back and you go, do you know what? That's why that happened.
Yes. Yeah. I totally agree with you, Jane.
Yeah.
Totally.
Everything. So dance teachers, just take a breath, sit down and physically write down in something where you would like to be and how you think you might want to get there and how you think you could get there. And if you can join up, not even necessarily with another dance teacher, but with somebody who maybe might have a business in, I don't know, even in printing, that they could give you. Anybody who's in business, their business might not relate to what you do, but they'll have nuggets of information and they will have bits of advice. Join a group. Yes. Join a mentoring group, join a support group, join a Facebook group where you can, I mean, I'm in the Women's Inspire Network. Yes. And I have been there crying my eyes out. Yes. And then the next day I've been there talking about printing. So it goes from, you can find somewhere where you are comfortable. I feel the WIN group is my safety net.
Yes, I mean, this program on a Monday is powered by the Women's Inspire Network. Samantha Kelly, Tweeting Goddess, who is the founder of the Women's Inspire Network. How long have you been involved with it, Jane?
I think it's 3 years come August.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it is my safety net. I feel so safe in that group. Yes. That I don't feel like I have never had anything but support. And I have put, if you go back onto the group and look back and just put my name in, you will see everything and anything in there under my name, because I just feel that it's somewhere where people understand you as a mum, people understand you as somebody in business, and people understand you just as a person.
Yes.
So
it's one of the really good ones, and it's gone global now.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's just one of those places that, and so if you're a dance teacher or anybody in business, find somewhere where you have where you're safe, and yes, cry your eyes out, have a laugh, have a cup of tea if you need it, and then come back and you have networking sessions where you can come up with different ideas. You know, I've had that as well. So it's just take a breath and find somewhere where you feel supportive and safe.
Jane Byrne, it's been wonderful having you on the show today. This is Miriam O'Gara on Business Block, and Monday's show is for members of the Women's Inspire Network. Jane is a member, and we'd love to see you there. On Thursdays, I also have local business, national business, and international business on Business Block. Subscribe, you'll find us on YouTube. We're absolutely delighted to have other people on in similar situations. Great tips here from Jane Byrne. Jane, I'm absolutely delighted to have had you on. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved every minute, and I could keep going forever if you wanted me to.
Okay. Well, look, I'm delighted to have had you on, everybody. Look, I'll see you again on Monday. Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.